now for another one. I don't know if you guys heard me speak about this, but I was just chatting after the Michael Wu session. I was chatting about having a chat with Donnie Big Bags. Many of you may know Donnie Big Bags from Twitter. I was chatting to him this week, and something that he told me about Logan, which I did not know. Now, I know Logan has been, with the Web3 Foundation, very intricately involved in Substrate and Polkadot and the Kusama networks. Of course, Kusama is the canary network of Polkadot, for those of you that may not be familiar. What I didn't know is that Logan was actually the man, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Logan, but this is what Donnie Big Bags told me, is that you were the man that hit the final enter keystroke to deploy Kusama's one time. Is that a correct story?
Unfortunately, I can't claim to be the last one to have clicked the button. That would go to the infrastructure engineer, Federico. But I was there assisting with that, yes.
Okay, so you were there. You were at least there. All right. So a man who really was intricately involved in the deployment of Kusama, now building his own Kusama parachain, Zeitgeist. I'm privileged to work with this team. I run communications for Zeitgeist. It's a real privilege to work with Logan, David Perry, formerly of Consensus, now with them, Chris Hutchinson, who was with Web3 as well, and now with the CEO, Logan, who's going to talk about the Zeitgeist protocol, about prediction markets. Logan, it's a privilege to have you here in South Africa. Welcome to this platform. Take it away, man.
Cool. Thanks a lot, James. Super glad to be here at this conference. I'll be talking today about why prediction markets are key to the future of blockchain. Now, you might be thinking this is a buzzwordy title for a slide deck, but I promise you, if you stick with me until the end, I'll give you a really convincing answer for why prediction markets are key to the future of blockchain. So, quick background about me. James gave me a bit of an introduction already. But I'm founder and CEO of Zeitgeist. I first got into Bitcoin in 2015. Really started to immerse myself with Ethereum in late 2016. So started to write smart contracts and build decentralized applications around that time. Worked on a few Ethereum-based products over 2017 and 2018. And joined the Web3 Foundation in early 2019 as technical educator. So I was involved in tooling around the launch of the Kusama launch, and thereafter did a lot of stuff with the validator community and the 1,000 Validators program. So I left that earlier this year to start working on Zeitgeist, which officially launched in February of this year. So before I just jump straight into Zeitgeist, I want to answer this question that I gave you at the beginning, which is why prediction markets are key to the future of blockchain. And to do that, I'll give you a bit of a historical context on one of the, I think, is the most important topics of blockchains right now. So in a way, blockchains are this new kind of thing. We can think of them as like a decentralized institution, or at the very least, attempting to replace institutions. So the way that this is accomplished is through replacing like central authorities and programmatically and cryptographically enforcing protocol rules that can do similar things as these authorities. So we see this with currency for one, identity is another one, and also governance itself is one thing that it does this to. However, if we do want blockchains to be possible replacements for these big institutions, we need a way to govern blockchains. And so there's a few questions that I put here that I think are some of the core questions around governing blockchains. So these are who determines the rules of the protocol, how do these rules change, and what happens in the case of disputes when someone disagrees with the rule change. So to give a couple historical examples of governance in blockchain, we can look at the two biggest networks so far. So with Bitcoin, we've seen kind of a more conservative stance over how the protocol changes. Any new change to Bitcoin goes through a pretty lengthy discussion and debate before it ever gets implemented, if it ever would get implemented. So this isn't exactly a bad thing in this context. I think actually like this conservative approach toward governance in Bitcoin is one of the unique selling points of Bitcoin. But once we start doing more complex applications, so like let's take Ethereum for example, with smart contracts, we start getting the need to include more and more functionality into the base layer protocol over time. So with Ethereum, we've seen that they've kind of settled on this rough consensus mixed with these like openly coordinated calls, like the core developer calls. And for the most part, all the coordination around the governance happens off-chain. So it needs to go through these kind of planning committees before any change gets included into the Ethereum protocol. And then, of course, in the case of any disputes, both of these chains would, as like the last case resort, end up in a hard fork. So we've seen these in notable examples already in the past. The Bitcoin Cash hard fork is one example, which stemmed out of a kind of technical debate around the block size. And then we've seen the Ethereum Classic Ethereum fork, which was more of a philosophical difference between the two networks. So given the fact that governance is a problem that we need to address in blockchain, we've seen a few networks explicitly going after this problem. So some of the earlier examples of this were Tezos, which has an on-chain governance feature set, but also Dash with treasury management, and then kind of the more recent bigger players are Kusama and Polkadot. So with Polkadot, which is kind of the protocol I'm most familiar with due to my past work history, we have a mix of these on-chain rule sets which dictate how the protocol can change. So the major difference here is that instead of having kind of a spurious off-chain coordination problem, we put that coordination explicitly encoded into the protocol itself. So with Polkadot, we have things like the referenda, which are coin holder voting, but also bodies like the council, which aim to represent minorities, and the technical committee, which help out with urgent bug fixes. Cool. So now that I've introduced kind of governance as a problem, I'll talk about another piece of this puzzle, which is prediction markets. So prediction markets are markets that trade on the outcome of future events. So one common example of prediction market is over an election. Let's say the past U.S. election. You could set up prediction markets that would trade on whether Biden won the election or whether Trump won the election. Prediction markets can be thought of as information machines because they collect wisdom from the crowd. So they do this by providing incentive for the information, and they have the nice benefit of being able to adapt to new information quickly, because what they are just markets. So anyone can go and place a trade. There are some regulations involved in certain jurisdictions, but for the most part, they're pretty they're open mechanisms. So what are these prediction markets good for? So the market mechanism, because of some of the things I talked about in the last slide, is the best known way for collecting and aggregating forecast information. So one common other tool that's used is polling. And prediction markets have been shown in numerous papers in the last 2 decades to perform more accurately in their predictions than polling. So polling itself is a science, and you can use it to get better and better results. But the core difference between polling and prediction markets comes down to the incentives of the participants. So if you think about the incentive that someone who participates in a poll would have, in most cases, it doesn't really exist. There isn't one. There's no benefit to a participant in a poll to report truthfully what they believe, what they think, or what they believe on, and there's no loss if they don't do that. So there's a lack of incentives there. What the market mechanism introduces is tangible benefits and losses for reporting incorrect information. So this allows you to basically put your money where your mouth is, and gives us a strong tool for collecting accurate information. So given that we have this tool, prediction markets, which are good at collecting forecasting information, the next question would be, what can we use this information or this intelligence for? So one of the most interesting use cases, I think, is what's called decision markets. So decision markets are a subclass of prediction markets, but what they're predicting is an outcome based on a certain decision. So these have been used in the past for corporate governance. There's a well-known example of Best Buy using these internally to forecast sales and making business strategies based on these forecasts. But even governments have used this. Certain departments in the U.S. government have been known to use these in kind of controlled environments. So decision markets are an interesting use case of prediction markets. And what we can do now is kind of use this use case and form an entire governance system around the decision markets. So this is what's called Futarchy, and it uses decision markets as one of its core governance mechanisms. So Futarchy was invented by Robin Hanson in a paper called Vote on Values, Bet on Beliefs. And this tagline kind of also succinctly encapsulates the core idea of how Futarchy works. So the idea is that we separate what the population wants versus how we actually achieve that want. So while we could use voting as a good way to determine, what people want as the ultimate outcome, we can use decision markets to actually give us a good forecasting signal about what we should do, and then take those signals and implement those strategies. So now I'll introduce Zeitgeist, which is a project working on these things, prediction markets and Futarchy. So what it is an evolving blockchain for prediction markets and Futarchy. It's a permissionless protocol for creating, trading, and disputing prediction markets, built with Substrate, which is kind of the Polkadot ecosystem SDK, and aims to deploy on the Kusama relay chain as a parachain. So it provides primitives for prediction markets and aims to grow an ecosystem around prediction market applications and DAOs using Futarchy. So Zeitgeist aims to bring Futarchy on-chain. It's not the first blockchain project to experiment with Futarchy. We've seen Ethereum-based projects experiment with it. And Vitalik Buterin has written about Futarchy in the past. But we do try to bring Futarchy further than we've seen before by implementing an on-chain Futarchy. Implementing it and then dogfooding it and using it to govern how Zeitgeist itself evolves. So we want to do this, and we also want to provide tools for DAOs to use this as well. So whether that is other projects in the Polkadot ecosystem that can use cross-chain messaging to implement on-chain Futarchy themselves, or whether this is DAOs that kind of live on the Zeitgeist chain that use Futarchy as a decision-making mechanism. So now I'll play a quick 2-minute video that explains how Zeitgeist implements Futarchy.
Echo chambers, opinion, and outright lies have twisted our world into a critical state of confusion. Trust in key institutions is at an all-time low. We deserve the best outcomes from our decisions, but don't know who or what to believe. That's where prediction markets and Futarchy can help shoulder the burden. Prediction markets are information machines, and that's because the odds on a particular market demonstrate what the collective wisdom of a community believes to be correct. Futarchy is a system of governance that aggregates wisdom from such prediction markets. The system incentivizes those with knowledge to trade on their beliefs. At Zeitgeist, it's our vision to build a protocol that will help people make impactful decisions faster and with greater accuracy. We see clear applications for prediction markets in DAOs, esports, politics, enterprises, and more. For that reason, we're building the Zeitgeist Network, a blockchain specifically tailored for prediction market creation and Futarchy governance. Zeitgeist is powered by the ZTG governance token and built using Substrate, positioning it perfectly for integration with the Kusama network and Polkadot ecosystem. Zeitgeist is governed by the holders of ZTG via a mix of normal token voting and prediction market-based Futarchy. Let's look at an example of how Zeitgeist utilizes Futarchy in its governance. A participant proposes a runtime upgrade. Before implementing a change, a prediction market is created based on the question, will the runtime upgrade go for at least a week without a bug being found? Token holders then trade on whether they believe this will be the case or not. The odds of that prediction market will signify the community's confidence in the upgrade. In our case, if a correct prediction share closes at $1 and yes is trading at a higher price than no, that's a signal that more people believe that yes, the runtime upgrade will go for a week without a bug being found, because voting so gives you less of a return on investment. At the protocol level, it could be programmed that if the market believes there is over a 60% chance of a bug being found within a week, the upgrade is not executed and all trades are reverted. Now, Futarchy governance can be a lot more nuanced than this, but the example gives you a basic idea of what such governance can look like. Incentivized, skin-in-the-game protocol governance. Zeitgeist has an open SDK and is actively working with developers and organizations looking to make better decisions by creating prediction markets and implementing Futarchy. Visit zeitgeist.pm to learn more and join our community on Discord.
Amazing, Logan. Thanks so much for that. It really was great to see that video wrap things up as well. That was awesome.
Yep.
Logan, have you answered the question? We've had one question come in. Evelise asked just some advice for youngsters in the industry.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Yeah, there's a ton of advice I could give. I guess the core thing is just be aware of kind of who you're working with from the start. So you want to find established like venture firms and investors in the industry over more. I mean, up and coming ones are okay too, but usually working with someone who is already established will guide you through a lot of the early problems you might have. And then compliance is a whole thing by itself that we could talk about for a long time.
And then Cornell asked a really interesting one. The Zeitgeist movie, did that by any chance give you, the Zeitgeist movie by Peter Joseph, did that by any chance give you inspiration for the name of the brand?
So I'm not sure I've actually seen the movie. I do remember watching like the trailer, like maybe 10 years ago. And I think that was probably the first time I was exposed to the word Zeitgeist. So I think in a way it did influence the choosing of the name, but not through the content or anything, just through general awareness of that existing.
Okay, well, that's interesting. So technically the answer to that is yes. So that is pretty interesting. If there's any more questions, I mean, you guys have like 30 seconds because we're a little bit over time at the moment, but you guys have about 30 seconds to drop in your questions. You can follow Logan on Twitter as well. He is pretty active. I mean, he's not the most active because I know whenever I try and hit him up, he's too busy stuck in the weeds of deving out his protocol. But he is there. You can check him out, Logan Saether, one word. Also follow the Twitter account of Zeitgeist, Zeitgeist PM, and just a little secret is that I am the man behind that Twitter account. So when you get a reply, it's usually I pushed enter. So if you really want to get to me, you can find Zeitgeist PM as well. Logan, thanks so much. I believe that was your first time speaking to a South African audience, and they certainly appreciate it. Any closing comments?
Yeah, thank you, James. Thanks a lot for the conference organizers. If anyone wants to reach out, the best way to contact me would be on Discord. So join the Zeitgeist Discord and you can find me there and DM me.
Excellent. Yeah. And guys, if you want to get that link, just go to zeitgeist.pm, the website, zeitgeist.pm. At the bottom is a link to the Discord directly, and you'll get straight into it. So there we go. Logan Saether, CEO of the Zeitgeist Network. Very exciting things to come. Soon to be a Kusama parachain, and wishing everyone there all the best. Logan, thank you again. Cheers, man.
Thank you, James.